place it out there I can learn so that I can be more successful. That wasn't your motivation?
No, oddly enough. And I think probably you're right. I think that's what most people are looking for. I think they're looking for an answer outside of themselves, and they're never going to find it. I think by this time I realized it was something in me. So I started to study myself. I found most people don't know who they are. They really don't. Who am I?
Who am I? One of the most common, frequently asked questions. So, who am I? Or, in this case, who are we? I have no problem sharing this with you. It's actually quite simple. But first, let me indulge you on a little journey in history.
And very sophisticated African American community that existed in Tulsa, Oklahoma at the turn of the century. Presently, American history instills into the minds of the youth of all races that African Americans have no other history than that of slavery or civil rights. This rich and very vital history of Black Wall Street will instill instant pride, multicultural awareness, improve self-esteem, and build a strong character in our youth. Another very significant point should be made. It is that when youths from other nationalities see the documented historical, economical achievements of these African Americans in Black Wall Street, they will inevitably begin to view them in another light, hopefully reducing the ugliness of racism so prevalent in society today.
When you think about Black Wall Street, it's always about the massacre, or what they call the Tulsa, Oklahoma riots. We hardly ever talk about who are the major players in Black Wall Street and how everything came about. What most people know about it, that it was a successful Black community. White folks got mad over it and they destroyed it. But let's talk about how everything came together. Inside Black Wall Street, $1 circulated 36 to 100 times. And $1 stayed inside of the community for a year. That is legendary. And no community, anywhere on earth, I don't care where you name, has ever been able to accomplish that. A man named Ottawa W. Gurley, or O.W. Gurley, and John Baptist Stratford, or J.B. Stratford, were two of the big names responsible for Black Wall Street. They were able to convince Black folks to pool their resources together for a better economy. They bought up all the land, and they got it popping. They built homes, schools, grocery stores, anything that you can think of. Anything that comes to mind, they had it. They even had their own planes. And both of them had their own hotel. They named the street Greenwood Avenue after the town in Mississippi where a lot of Black folks were coming from. O.W. Gurley was born in Huntsville, Alabama on Christmas Day, 1868. He moved to Oklahoma in 1889 during the land rush. And he came to Oklahoma with a mindset of Black empowerment. During this time, Negroes in the tens of thousands moved to Oklahoma because they saw a mecca for the Black establishment for Black Wall Street. J.B. Stratford came from Kentucky, and he moved to Oklahoma in 1889 as well. He also came with that same mindset, Black empowerment. These brothers even had their own banks. See, white folks didn't like that. They didn't like going to Black banks to borrow money. The apartment buildings they built They only rented out to black folks. Their hotels were for only black folks. Everything was black. And all of their businesses competed with the finest businesses in Oklahoma. They were either right there with them or they were dominating them. White folks didn't like that. O.W. Gurley and J.B. Stratford took advantage of the oil industry. As the oil industry boomed, black folks from everywhere were moving to Tulsa. In 1914, the Muskogee Skimmer newspaper reported O.W. Gurley's net worth to be over $150,000, which is the equivalent of over $3 million today. And J.B. Stratford was his equal. You had people inside of Black Wall Street who were driving the Ford Model T car at that time. From that era, equivalent today is like driving a Rolls-Royce Phantom. O.W. Gurley was also a sheriff's deputy. Don't let what happened during the riots fool you as if we just laid down and didn't fight back. But speaking of that, we always protected what was ours. We fought to the end. Whether we were outmanned, outgunned, we still fought. Like I always say, we have never laid down and accepted slavery. Never. And we've always fought back. And even after slavery, anytime we're met with violence, we respond.
Dick Rowland, a shoeshine boy, entered the elevator in the Drexel building to use one of the only few colored bathrooms in downtown Tulsa. On the top floor, Sarah Page, a 17-year-old, a white elevator operator, began operating the elevator when it lurched, causing Rowland to stumble. He bumped into Sarah, and she screamed. Rowland, knowing what Frederick Douglass had penned as the truth with regards to the treatment of black men in America, to be accused was to be convicted, and to be convicted was to be punished. In this case, punishment, when it came to the accusations of a white woman, meant death, and knowing her scream was a likely death sentence, young Rowland ran away. He was later seized and apprehended with the intent of being lynched. Word of a black man raping a defenseless white girl spread throughout the Tulsa area. Dozens and then hundreds, until a mob of over 2,000 white men gathered at the county courthouse demanding justice. But justice for what? Sarah Page wasn't assaulted. Her clothes weren't ruffled. And though her story wavered during questioning, she ultimately affirmed she was not harmed. Moreover, she refused to sign a statement saying that she had been raped. But don't let the facts get in the way of a false accusation of a black man who needed to be put in his place at the end of a rope. The Tulsa Tribune reported,
"A Negro assaults a white girl.
And later,
To lynch Negro tonight."
with no basis in fact for the allegations of rape, the mob persisted in their demand for justice of a white girl who emphatically stated that no injustice had been done. Walter White of the New York Evening Post wrote,
Chief of Police John A. Gustafson, Sheriff McCullough, Mayor T.D. Evans, and a number of reputable citizens, among them prominent oil operator, all declared the girl had not been molested, that no attempt at criminal assault had been made. Victor F. Barnett, managing editor of the Tribune, stated that his paper had since learned that the original story that the girl's face was scratched and her clothes torn was untrue.
and there you have it, fake news. But the damage had already been done, and the wheels were set in motion. Armed black World War I veterans were among the less than 100 members of the Greenwood community who came to prevent another lynching of a black man. as thousands had been lynched since the generation of Reconstruction. Some 500 members of the white mob were armed and deputized by city officials, and those who didn't own weapons looted stores to obtain guns and ammunition along the way. Thousands of angry white men descended upon Little Africa, as a few white families provided sanctuary to those fleeing from violence. Over the course of 24 hours, the mob looted, murdered, and razed the wealthiest black city in America to the ground.
Black Wall Street was a pinnacle and monumental staple for all blacks or African Americans. It's fact that more black millionaires existed there at that time than across the entire United States of America. Now, Black Wall Street was founded around 1905. It's estimated that in that start of the 1900s, there were 5,000 millionaires in total across America. And it's recorded that there were 500,000 millionaires in the 1980s. So the fact that the bulk of all millionaires were clustered in Black Wall Street was astonishing. Black Wall Street really began thriving shortly after it was founded back in 1905. It lasted all the way up until May 31st, 1921, when Black Wall Street came to a tragic abrupt end. The horrible event that took place on that day in May would go down in history as the Tulsa, Oklahoma Race Massacre. Probably the most damaging thing to happen to black or African Americans since slavery and Jim Crow. Since Black Wall Street, things have changed, but not so much. Far after the early 1900s, but not too far back in history, there have been other attempts to unify blacks, such as the Black Panther Party, which were destroyed to drug infestation from our government and false allegations of terrorist plots, also started by the government agencies. But that's another story for here nor there. Black Wall Street, though, not remembered or glorified to its deserved magnitude, still prevails as an idle standard for black excellence, and most importantly, unification amongst all black or African Americans in our community. With that being said, my goal is to be a part of the new start of a lifestyle based on these principles. I present to you a coalition of some of the finest I've encountered. We are oh so ill. We are Marley B. We are JD. We are rest in peace DB. And so much more. We stand for ourselves, we stand for all other minorities and even the vast majority, thriving together in peace and harmony. We are the new Black Wall Street.
Memories have faded, and survivors have died, taking the knowledge of not only how the cities were destroyed, but arguably even more tragic, the knowledge of how these countless all-black towns were built. Can a biblical blueprint be extrapolated from what we found? That is indeed our challenge, to cooperate, coordinate, and collaborate in order to turn our desolate neighborhoods into thriving communities and build them up by utilizing the keys to economic and societal development. Let us rediscover, let us reunite, and let us rebuild a new black Wall Street.